Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. But look, I want you to treat this one a little differently than our usual deep dives. Seriously, we're going to treat this like a breathless thriller, because the pacing of the events we're about to cover, it's absolutely terrifying. We are looking at a story of sheer escalation, massive human distraction, and, well, a literal earth-shattering wake-up call.
So I want to pose this question directly to you right now. What if heaven sent one final warning to humanity? And I don't mean a subtle hint, not some endlessly debated ancient text. I'm talking about a global, undeniable, in-your-face warning. Just imagine waking up and realizing the world as you know it is actively screaming at you to pay attention.
The timeline of how this escalated is just chilling. It started with the sky. On the first night, this giant, silent ring of light just appeared over the oceans. And what did we do? Well, scientists brushed it off as some rare atmospheric thing, and influencers, they literally immediately started recording TikToks to trending audio. But it didn't stop. By the third night, the moon turned this deep blood red. Birds abruptly stopped flying over major cities. The signs were everywhere, multiplying by the hour, completely spiraling out of control while we just kept scrolling, until the world was literally forced to stop.
At exactly 3:33 a.m. I mean, think about the sheer scale of that for a second. At exactly 3:33 a.m., across the entire globe, every single phone, every screen, every connected device just froze. And they all displayed the exact same message, return before the final hour. Just imagine the weight of those words flashing on billions of screens all at once. It's staggering. Naturally, governments completely denied any involvement. The biggest tech companies in the world scrambled, trying to blame it on some massive hacker syndicate. But the terrifying truth? They were utterly, completely clueless about where it came from.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the total absurdity of the human response. While the Earth was fundamentally changing, like we're talking giant screens in New York, flashing unknown symbols, the barren desert of Dubai, blooming overnight with these strange white flowers nobody had ever seen, what were we doing? We were making memes. We were chasing fame, arguing in comment sections, and letting crime and wars intensify. While the apocalypse was literally unfolding right outside our windows, we essentially turned the whole shebang into cheap entertainment.
But not everyone was blinded by the spectacle. Over in the streets of Juba, South Sudan, an old blind man stood up and shouted this incredibly powerful warning into the crowds. He said, "Heaven is speaking because humanity no longer listens." And tragically, people just laughed at him. Even institutions like churches had become businesses at this point. Greed was so deeply entrenched that society just kept right on consuming, completely missing the point. And then, suddenly, the distractions didn't matter anymore. Because one morning, for exactly 60 seconds, every single sound on the entire planet abruptly stopped. No cars, no wind, no voices, no animals. Just silence. For the very first time in human history, humanity experienced pure, unadulterated fear, completely together. It's like the whole Earth simply held its breath. In the middle of that suffocating silence, a little girl in Brazil turned to her mother and asked, "Why does it feel like God left us?" That child's heartbreaking question really grounds the immense global panic we're talking about into a deeply personal, terrifying reality, doesn't it?
Because that feeling of abandonment, that was just the precursor. That night, the stars completely disappeared. The entire sky became pitch black. And I don't mean clouded over. I mean utterly, terrifyingly empty. The panic that erupted globally was absolute. Flights were instantly grounded. People looted stores, completely convinced this was the definitive end, while millions of others flooded into streets, mosques, and churches, just desperately praying for mercy. Then came the final message. Across the pitch-black heavens, burning brighter than the sun itself, these words formed in every single language known to man. I gave you time. So the really crucial takeaway here is how people reacted in what they fully believed were their final seconds. I mean, millions fell to their knees. But even at the very edge of the end, a famous billionaire literally live-streamed himself arrogantly laughing at the sky, right up until the exact moment every screen around him violently shattered. Now compare that to a young influencer, someone with millions of followers who had chased fame his entire life. He sat completely alone in his apartment, finally realizing how empty his life actually was. For the first time, he genuinely prayed, not for money, not for success, but simply for another chance. And then, the most unnatural, miraculous thing happened. Rain began to fall.
this wasn't ordinary rain. Each drop glowed like liquid silver light, falling gently onto a terrified, broken world.
Wherever those glowing silver drops touched the ground, flowers instantly bloomed. In an absolute instant, all violence across the globe completely stopped. Raging fires just died out. The very air itself suddenly felt vibrant and alive. The chaos was instantly, miraculously healed.
And as that silver rain washed over the earth, an echoing voice swept across the entire globe with this massive, massive twist. This is the final warning, not the final end. Humanity hadn't been destroyed. They had been spared. We had been given one last, impossible chance. As the sky cleared and the glowing rain stopped, humanity woke up to a borrowed tomorrow. So I want to leave you with this final echoing thought from this explainer. When faced with the absolute edge of everything, who will you choose to become before time runs out?